Alright, today I'm going to walk you through how to buy a 2 to 4 unit property. So I'm going to walk you through how much money you need to save, the type of loans to look out for, as well as how to qualify for them. I'm going to walk you through what to actually look for when you're in the property and what to look for as far as tenants go, and even what to do when making an offer. After that, I'm going to talk about what happens once you get your offer accepted all the way up until closing. Alright, first things first, if you're looking to buy some real estate, the very first thing you have to do is start saving up some money. I know there are a lot of programs out there as far as down payment assistance and things like that, but at the end of the day, if you're serious about buying real estate, you need to have some money saved up. Now the question is exactly how much money do you need? A general rule of thumb is you need to have 6.5% of the purchase price saved up. And that's for your down payment as well as your closing costs. So in case you didn't know, your down payment is going to be at least 3.5% of your closing costs if you're using an FHA loan, which we'll get into more of that later. And on top of that, you're going to need an additional 3% for the closing costs. So put that together, you're going to need 6.5% of the purchase price. So for a quick example, if you have $300,000 or if you have a property that's worth $300,000 that you're trying to buy, you're going to need to save up 6.5% of that $300,000, which is $19,500. Now, as far as down payment assistance programs go, there are many of them out there. So for Illinois, for example, a big down payment assistance program is called the IDA grant, which I made a video about this already. I'll make sure to leave a link in the description for you. If you're interested in other down payment programs, really all you have to do is Google down payment assistance programs in your area. I'm sure there'll be a few options for you. Another thing that constantly pops up when talking about saving up enough money for buying real estate is to ask the seller for a closing cost credit. That way you don't need to bring as much money to closing. Now, this can certainly happen. However, I won't necessarily count on it. It's not guaranteed that the seller will be willing to actually give you a closing cost credit. I'll go over this more once I start talking about making your offer. Once you have some money saved up, the next thing you need to do is start speaking with a mortgage lender to get pre-approved. I constantly say this, but once again, it needs to be said. If you're not pre-approved for a loan, you really don't know what your budget is, or you really don't know how much money you can actually afford. Now, exactly what goes into qualifying for a loan. First, let's talk about your credit score. The minimum credit score that you're going to need for an FHA loan is a 580. However, if you have a 580 credit score, your interest rate is going to be a lot higher. This is why I recommend that you have a credit score of at least above 660. That way you can start qualifying for some of the better interest rates and your mortgage will be cheaper. If you're looking for ways to improve your credit score, one of the best things you can do is to start work on lowering your balances or lowering your debt balances. Things such as minimum credit card payments, if you can start to lower those, it will go a long way towards actually improving your credit score. In other words, just start paying off as much of your debt as you can before you start buying a home, and it'll put you in better position. As far as loans go, the next thing you need to know about is your debt to income ratio. Your debt to income ratio is the amount of total monthly debt that you have, such as minimum credit card payments, student loan payments, stuff like that, divided by your total monthly income. Your debt to income ratio basically determines how much money you can qualify for. For FHA loans, for example, FHA requires that your debt to income ratio is no higher than 43%. So in other words, your monthly debt payments can be no more than 43% of your monthly income. For conventional loans, it's even lower than that. They don't want to see your debt to income ratio any higher than around 36 to 38%. If you're looking to improve your debt to income ratio so you can be able to afford more as far as a loan goes, once again, I would focus on lowering your minimum monthly debt payments. So not only will that help with your debt to income ratio, that'll help with your credit card score as well. Now let's talk about the different loan types out there. One of the more popular loan types, especially for first-time home buyers, is the FHA loan. First-time homebuyers especially love the FHA loan because it's a lot easier to qualify for when compared to a conventional loan. The FHA loan not only has a lower minimum credit score requirement, which it only requires a 580, it also has a higher debt to income limit, which once again makes it easier to qualify for. And on top of that, you can qualify for more money with an FHA loan than when compared to a conventional loan. The FHA loan, however, does have more requirements. So for instance, with an FHA loan, you need to live in the property for at least 1 year. Also, with an FHA loan, the property needs to pass an FHA inspection. The FHA inspection basically says that the property needs to be in move-in ready condition. So if there is anything wrong with the home, such as peeling paint, broken windows, or maybe the hot water isn't working, stuff like that, the property will not pass an FHA inspection and you won't be able to get a loan for it. To me, that's one of the biggest drawbacks of using an FHA loan. The property has to be move-in ready, and if the property is move-in ready, it's going to cost a lot more than a property that is in more of an as-is condition. So if you're using an FHA loan, chances are you're going to have to spend more money to be able to find a property that actually qualifies for the FHA loan. If you compare that with a conventional loan, however, you don't have to pass an FHA inspection. So with the conventional loan, you're able to more easily buy as-is properties, which means you can also be able to buy some of the cheaper properties that are out there on the market. However, the conventional loan is harder to qualify for than the FHA loan. Now, let's say you can't qualify for a conventional loan, but you found a property that needs some repairs that you want to buy. Another option you can use is called the FHA 203K loan. The 203K loan will not only give you the loan for the property, they will give you the loan for the repairs themselves. Keep in mind, however, that if you're using a 203K loan, you just can't use any old contractor. You have to use a contractor that's certified with the 203K program, which they tend to be more expensive. Also, with the 203K loan, you have to remember that not only does the price of the property itself have to fit into your budget, but the repairs have to fit into the total budget of how much you qualify for as well. And as far as estimating expenses, trust me, it's easier said than done. With FHA 203K loans, I tend to find out that the repairs are always a little bit more than what you've estimated. If you have access to a credit union, I would always actually start there first because credit unions tend to have the best interest rates. If you're not a part of a credit union, you can try the place that you bank at, or you can try some online lenders such as Loan Depot or Guaranteed Rate. Now, when shopping around lenders, make sure that you look at multiple lenders to see what they can offer you. I know a lot of people are afraid that if they go with multiple lenders and all those lenders look up their credit, it's going to hurt their credit score. However, if you look up multiple lenders within a 45-day period, it only counts as one hit on your credit score. So it pays to shop around to see who offers the best rates for you. Once you have your finances worked out and you have your pre-approval in place, the next step for you to take is to find a realtor to show you some properties. Now, if you're in the Chicago area, you don't have to look much further. All you have to do is reach out to me and I'd be happy to help. Once you reach out to your realtor, let them know exactly what you are looking for and have them send you some properties for sale. And also, remember that you can look for properties yourself on websites like Realtor.com or Zillow. Send your realtor any properties that you are interested in and have them look into it for you to see if it'll be a good fit for you. Have your realtor set up some showings for you and get out there and start looking. Here are a couple of things to look out for when you're actually viewing properties. Now, when you're viewing a building, the number one thing you need to look out for is water damage. Water damage mainly comes from two places, either from the top, from the roof, or from the foundation in the basement. So when you're looking on the inside of the property, make sure, especially on the top floor, to check out the ceiling and look for any brown watermarks. When you're in the basement, make sure to check out the walls and the baseboards to look for any signs of water damage, such as any brown spots, any mold, anything that signals that water has been getting into that building. The next thing you need to check out is the general condition of the property. How does the floor look? How do the bathrooms look? How does the kitchen look? How do the kitchen appliances look? Make sure to check the water pressure of any of the faucets, such as the kitchen sink faucet and the bathroom sink faucet. You just want to make sure that the water pressure is okay because you don't want to run into that problem after you purchase the property. Next, you should make sure to check all the switches in the property just to make sure the electricity works in all the rooms. Now, this may seem like something that's simple, but if there is a problem with the electricity, that could mean you have to dig into the wall and it could get pretty expensive. So you want to make sure that the electricity is working properly as well. Last but not least, if you're dealing with 2 to 4 unit properties, make sure that you check out the tenants. First, how are the tenants living? Do they keep the property in good condition or is it very dirty? Make sure that you look into how much money they're paying. A lot of issues you'll run into with 2 to 4 unit properties is if they have long-term tenants, those tenants may not have had their rents increased in a while, so they may be paying under market value. That rental income might be okay for a seller who has a lower mortgage or a lower interest rate, but at today's prices and today's interest rates, that rental income may not work out for you. Also, make sure you look into their leases. Do they have a month-to-month lease, or do their leases expire within a year? If their leases aren't month-to-month, that means you as the new owner can't do anything with those tenants until their lease expires. So if they have a lease that doesn't expire until next year and they're paying below market rent, that means you're stuck with that until, once again, the lease expires. And on top of that, keep in mind that if you're using an FHA loan, you're going to need to move into one of the units. So if the building is fully occupied and none of the tenants are month to month, which means you can't get any of the tenants to move, then you can't really buy that building with an FHA loan because you won't even be able to live in the building. Of course, all of these problems go away if the building is actually vacant. That's why vacant 2 to 4 unit properties tend to sell at more of a premium, or in other words, they cost a little bit more. However, those are a little bit harder to find because most landlords want to keep the building occupied. They want to keep that rental income coming in so they can pay off that mortgage. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're looking around at properties for sale. Once you find a property you like, it's time to start talking about making that offer. When making that offer, there are two main strategies, and it really depends on how long the property has been on the market and if they have multiple offers or not. If the property just came on the market and it seems to be generating a lot of interest from buyers, you might want to think of making your offer closer to the asking price to get the seller to agree to a contract with you before other people come in and make offers. Once you have a multiple offer situation, however, all bets are off. In fact, I wouldn't even pay attention to the asking price because once you get into a multiple offer situation, chances are somebody's going to pay over the asking price. In a multiple offer situation, you're really only going to get one shot at it. So I suggest that you think about the most that you want to pay for your property, make that offer, and just leave it at that. Leave all your cards on the table. Leave it all out on the field. If your offer gets beat out by somebody who bid more than you, more power to them. But at least you won't have any regrets. Now, if the property has been on the market for a long time, let's say over 2 months, then you can think about making more of a lowball offer. Once the property has been on the market for a while, sellers will start to become more desperate and they'll become more willing to listen to lower offers. At the end of the day, it really just depends on how much buyer demand there is on the property. If there's a lot of buyer demand, such as when a property just comes on the market, you might want to just play ball with the seller and give them as close to the asking price as possible just to try to get it under contract. However, if the property has been for sale for a long time, you have more room to negotiate. However, if there are multiple offers, then I would suggest just submitting your highest and best offer because you're only going to get one shot. Last but not least, let's talk about asking the seller to pay for some of your closing costs. As far as closing costs go, most lenders will allow a seller to contribute up to 6% of the purchase price in closing costs. That doesn't necessarily mean the seller will just be willing to pay for those closing costs, however. At the end of the day, the seller only cares about how much money they're going to net. So if you're asking the seller to pay $5,000 towards your closing costs, that's $5,000 less the seller's going to have. So keep that in mind when you're making an offer. Oh wait, speaking of offers, I forgot about one other part of an offer that you need to think about, and that's your earnest money. Earnest money is a deposit that you make in good faith that shows the seller that you, as a buyer, are serious about buying this property. Once the property closes, the earnest money that you deposited actually goes towards your closing costs. So the earnest money is basically like paying a little bit of your down payment up front. When depositing their earnest money, a lot of buyers are often worried that they're going to lose out on that money once they do the inspection and they find something they don't like and they no longer want the property. Once you deposit your earnest money, most contracts allow you 5 business days to do an inspection on that property to try to find anything wrong with it. If you do find something you don't like during that inspection and you no longer want the property, you can back out of the deal and get your earnest money back. Now, what happens once your offer is accepted? First off, if your offer is accepted, then congratulations, because you've gone past the hard part. However, there are still a few more steps you need to take before purchasing the property. First, you're going to need to deposit your earnest money, which most contracts require you to deposit your earnest money within 3 business days. Next, you should get your contract to your real estate attorney and have them look over it. While I know in some states a real estate attorney isn't required, I would always recommend one because you need somebody on your side looking into all the legal stuff. such as making sure the property has a clear title, making sure there aren't any liens on the property, stuff like that. And lastly, like I mentioned before, you need to do your home inspection. Once you hire a home inspector, that inspector is going to go through every inch of that property to find everything they can that might be wrong with it. I know for home buyers, this is often a scary time because you don't want to see everything that's possibly wrong with the property. However, you have to kind of keep in perspective that pretty much every single property that an inspector goes through is going to have something wrong with it, even if it's new construction. They're going to find something. Instead, you should talk with your inspector about any major issues there are with the home. For example, like I mentioned before, what's going on with the roof and what's going on with the basement foundation, stuff like that, stuff that is expensive to repair. Once you have your inspection report, make sure to bring it to your attorney and go over it with them to see if there are any major items on there. If there's anything on that report that you want the seller to address, have your attorney reach out to them and either ask the seller to repair it or ask the seller to give you some money back in the form of a repair credit. From there, the seller can either negotiate the repair credit with you, they can make the repairs, or they can just simply say, no, we're not doing anything, take the home as is. In that case, you as a buyer then have the option to decide whether you want to still go forward with the deal or if you want to back out and get your earnest money back. So in the end, the inspection period really just becomes another negotiation. Once you do your inspection and you decide to move forward with the deal, the next step is for the lender to send out an appraisal. The lender sends out an appraisal to basically make sure the property is worth the money that they're lending to you. If the appraisal comes out to the same amount or more than the purchase price, then you're good to go. If the appraisal comes in lower than the purchase price, then that means that the lender will only lend out the amount of money that it appraised to. So for example, if the purchase price is $300,000 and the property only appraised at $270,000, the lender is only going to give you $270,000. Now, as far as the seller goes, the seller can either accept that lower price amount or the seller can decide to back out of the deal. And if that happens, you once again would get your earnest money back as a buyer. After you're done with the appraisal, you're almost there. The next step for you is to do the final walkthrough. The final walkthrough is basically when you walk through the property either a day before closing or the day of closing, just to make sure the property is in the same condition it was the last time you saw it. So for example, you want to make sure that a tree didn't fall on the property or a water pipe didn't burst or something like that. Once you're done with the final walkthrough, then you make it to closing where you basically sign your life away. And from there, congratulations, you've just bought your first multi-unit property. If you have any questions about buying multifamily property or if you're looking to buy or sell in the Chicago area, feel free to reach out to me.